Waging war on corruption. Alex Jones on the GCN Radio Network. Big Brother, mainstream media, government cover-ups. You want answers? Well, so does he. He's Alex Jones on the GCN Radio Network. And now, live from Austin, Texas, Alex Jones.
$14.8 trillion, according to Bloomberg and AP, has been stolen in 7 months. They're online in 1 year out from the bailout to spend $26 trillion of your money. That's double the GDP. The federal inspector general says they don't know where the trillions went, and they're not going to tell you. The Federal Reserve's on record saying they're above the law. And then this isn't just people that haven't been paying their mortgage. In my experience, their companies are just saying you still owe when it's paid off, especially if it looks like you're blue collar. And then they just send the police out and they take your house. I mean, this happened during the Great Depression, too. They're also starting to call in full loans. They're starting to call in full notes. And like, let's say you owe $500,000. You did owe $1 million on your family farm you bought, or a piece of land you expanded your farm or ranch on, and you've paid off half of it. And they're now saying, you know what, there was a little clause in there we interpret. We're taking the property right now, unless you can pay $500,000 right now. And you're like, hey, I'm making my payments. They go, SWAT team standing by. SWAT team standing by. And then you become homeless, and then they now grab you off the street, put you in a government home, that's basically a prison, and make you pay rent. Joyce, in fact, guys, people won't believe me, that search engine that, New York State to make homeless pay rent. I want people to see this for themselves. Joyce, this is frightening because this is getting worse and worse and worse. And coming up in the next segment, we're going to play the audio here that's never before heard when you went off air today, but you still had her online from your radio show when this happened to her. This is I haven't heard this yet, but John Harmon says this is some really painful audio to listen to. Can you tell us what's coming up?
It's absolutely horrible. I mean, we were all in tears when we were listening to it. Everybody in our office at the Power Hour was in tears listening to this because it is just so chilling to believe that it can happen in America to innocent people. I mean, really innocent people. You know, the trillions of dollars you were talking about earlier that's going to, the Leave No Banker Behind Bailout Act. Anybody that needs the money that they want to give it to gets the money. And, I was saying to Josh this morning, do you know how long it takes to count to $1 trillion? If you, Alex, decided to start right now and count to $1 trillion, it would take you 42,000 years. That is so unbelievable of how much $1 trillion is. And then somebody's a few dollars behind on their mortgage payments, and they get thrown out on the street because they can't get a job here because we're too busy giving the jobs away to China and then bringing in the plastic food for our babies to eat and our animals to eat to give them kidney stones.
Well, let me add to that, Joyce. In fact, we just put up the headline, New York charges rent for working homeless. They find out, oh, you're homeless, but you've got a job. They rifle through them, and then they go and start debiting the little job with the poor person trying to get back on their feet, just like all over the country. People have a mobile home they're living in while they work, trying to get a house. They seize it the minute the tag's out, but then leave illegal aliens alone. But you guys can pull this up. Let me think of the exact headline. It's been all over the news that half of Congress doesn't pay taxes. Most of the Obama administration doesn't pay them and says they don't care. But more importantly, if you see these articles, they got rid of most of the IRS enforcers on billionaires, and they focused them on actually blue collar, which of course brings in a lot less tax receipts, but showing the white collar criminals have made it where there's no investigations of them, Joyce.
Well, and the question of who owes taxes anyway, that's another whole discussion of who owes taxes and what is income. That's something that's talked about. But
even within their system, they don't follow it. The law is for us, the schmucks.
Bingo.
And then they're the gods.
And you've got the poor getting poorer, the rich getting richer, and the confiscation of property. And like you were saying, Alex, with your own home, I think this is where it's at. I think that is the desire and the goal is to take property, to seize property. Don't just take it, to seize it. Now, I've got an update. I just got an update on the break a few minutes ago as to where she is, where Don Welch is, and what's going on with them right now as we speak in Hillsborough, Missouri.
All right, we're going to do a recap after this break. Long segment coming up. Recap, latest developments, play the audio here for the first time. Then we'll post it up at Infowars.com, PrisonPlanet.com, ThePowerHour.com, Dave and Joyce's site. And, of course, GCNlive.com. I'm sure I'll post it as well. Stay with us. We'll be right back. This is coming up. You'll hear the real deal.
Hi. Big Brother, mainstream media, government cover-ups. You want answers? Well, so does he. He's Alex Jones on the GCN Radio Network. And now, live from Austin, Texas, Alex Jones.
All right, I know I said wide open phones today and no guests, but news develops here. So your calls are coming up at the bottom of the hour throughout the rest of the show. I will do an analysis of why is Obama going to release new torture, as they call them, abuse photos. We'll be breaking that down. Latest developments on the economy, a bunch of police state news. They've introduced bills to arrest you under federal felonies if someone says your email site or your news story hurt their feelings. You can't make this up. It actually says it. We've been talking about that since last week, but it's racing through the House now. Other hate crimes bills to restrict free speech, and a violent extremist act that says if the Attorney General thinks you might be violent or a terrorist someday, that's what Rahm Emanuel said in the speech. We're going to play it later. But now they've got a law they're trying to pass where you can't then own a gun. The right-wingers, returning veterans, the American people. I mean, this is high treason. It's actually happening. That is coming up after we take a bunch of your phone calls. Joyce Riley, talk show host here on the Genesis Network from 7 in the morning to 10, right before Derry Brownfield. They had this lady on who said that neighbors were told the police were coming that day to evict her, even though she had the letter and the court case, note paid in full. They'd sold it to another company, Wachovia. They're saying, no, we're not honoring that. We're taking it. I have experienced this where they sold my mortgage 3 or 4 times and then just took the escrow money and said I hadn't paid it and we're going to take my house. And they were suing me to take it, and I had to go prove all this. I have a little 4 acres, and it turned out we did pay it on some land out by Johnson City. And I just got a big bill, and they're saying they're taking it. I mean, folks, this is happening to everybody, and I got to go fight that or they'll take it. Even though we have the record, we sent them the check. And this is how they operate. Now, Joyce, just during the break, got some new information. So for stations that just joined us, Joyce, and quite a few just joined us, recap what's happened in Missouri, the lady's name, and the new developments, and then we'll play this audio that was recorded after your show ended.
Dawn Welch has been a listener to Genesis Network for 5 years. And she's very well aware of what her rights are. So when this first mortgage company, when she was smart enough to write to the mortgage company and ask them if they still owned the note and if her mortgage was paid in full, they sent her back in writing, yes, your mortgage is paid in full. Well, the mortgage had been sold to Wachovia. Wachovia then enters in, though their name is not on the lien and they have no equity interest in her home, they went to the judge and, of course, the sheriff and told them to go ahead and take the house. Well, she went through the whole proceedings, all the time standing up for herself and challenging them every step of the way. She put notices on her front and back door. She put up no trespassing signs. She said, this is my property, and I will not voluntarily give it up. So as a result of that, over the last few months, we've known that there were some problems there and that the police were going to come. They sent one note to her saying that we will come within 5 days. She put a note up saying, I will sue you as a private individual, Mr. Sheriff, if you do this. Well, they did come today. And when they came to her home at about, now we had her on the air at 8 o'clock Central, and they came to her house at about 8:45. They started gathering around with the ambulance, the Humvee, and all the vehicles. Started gathering away from her home. Now, her home is right next to the fairgrounds there in Hillsboro, Missouri. So they gathered all around there, kind of like they did with Waco. So we got really concerned. We're afraid of what was going to happen to her. And at about 10 o'clock, we went off the air. And we were off the air and unable to keep contact with the listeners, which is why I'm so appreciative that you were willing to put this on, because these people have been hanging, not knowing what happened. Well, we taped from 10 a.m. on, because John was able to get it connected up there at Genesis and help us out with Ted's involvement there. And what we did was we continued to tape this in an ongoing fashion so that we could hear her and had her on the phone the whole time. At approximately 10:25, they then began to come to her door to break it down. With the battering ram, they came to her door, started screaming for her to come outside. She refused to do so. They knew she was not a person who was going to harm them, and so they weren't even showing any weapons at the time. But she was unfortunately the victim of them breaking down her door. And what you're going to hear is the sound this morning at 10:30 Central Time when they broke down her door. Then after that, I'll give you the update of what I just learned has happened to her since that time. But this is so chilling. I want everybody to take this off of Infowars and get it onto your email. Send it out and let people hear what it's like for a 54-year-old grandmother who's trying to save her home for her children and her grandchildren.
And then meanwhile, the bankers have stolen 14 plus trillion, and they say, we're not going to tell you where it is. In fact, here's Bloomberg today. Fed Inspector General claims she does not know where the trillions went and doesn't have to tell anybody.